Today's video, we're going to make this quilt top using yardage fabric and a jelly roll. The jelly roll I used is a mini, and I'm getting a lap quilt out of it, and we're doing a chevron type design. Very minimalist, so let's get started. Hello, I'm Jackie with Jackie Russell Creates, and I want to personally welcome you to my page, where I give you tips, tricks, and techniques to make that next quilt project that you've been looking at. So if you're new here and you learned something and you want to continue to learn about quilting and sewing projects, whether they're big or small, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know the next time I upload a video. So let's get started. We are going to take a jelly roll. The one I used had 20 strips in it. You can use one that has 40, or you can make your own. The strips are going to be 2.5 inches wide. That's the size of the jelly roll, by 15.5. You're going to have some offcuts that are approximately 12 inches. We're going to start with some of those first. And that's going to give us these ones down here so we don't waste as much fabric. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 of the offcuts, and I'm just picking random ones. I actually took my whole pile and I just kind of made a mess so I can, randomly pick what I want to use. You're going to use the whole 20 strips from your jelly roll. So you'll cut 2 strips of 15.5 and then your random small one out of each strip. Then we're going to take 2 of the smaller strips, and you're going to put one going vertical and one going horizontal, and you're going to stitch along this short edge right there. You're going to do it at 1/4 inch. I just line them up. And so at this point, I do not pin. You can pin if you feel more comfortable pinning. So we have a point that looks like that. I would normally go and iron this down, but I'm just going to finger press it for the time being. And then we're going to take another short strip. So you're going to do 2 rows of your short strips, which are 12 inches by 2.5. So you're going to alternate sides. So this one, you sewed your right hand onto your left. Now we're going to sew on the left, and we're going to sew the long, down the long edge, right across there. They're not going to line up even down here at the end, so don't worry about that because we're going to cut it and make it straight. So we're just going to sew here along this edge. The only downfall with this pattern is you can't do the change stitching, but that's okay. We're going to press this open. Normally I would take it to the ironing board and press it, and then you're going to take a 4th strip of the small 12-inch ones, and you're going to line it up on the right hand side, and you're going to stitch down the long side once again. So there's the beginning of our chevron point, and you're going to now take your longer strips and that are 15.5 by 2.5, and we're going to do the same thing. Now this is going to be longer. I'll flip it over so you can see. This is going to be longer than this last one you just did. That's okay. We're going to trim this so it's all straight and get rid of all those points. So you're just going to repeat this same thing with all the long strips, going on the left side, pressing it open, coming on the right side and pressing it open until you have a total of 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 on each side. Now if you want to make your quilt bigger than the lap quilt, you just keep adding more on. More rows on until it's your desired length. So these, each one of these is half the size of the quilt. So ours is going to be 66 inches long. So these have to be 33 inches. They're actually 33.5 at the moment because they're unfinished. But they'll be 33. And I'll show you that when we get to that step. So I'm going to continue to sew on each side until we have 11 strips. So here we have it all finished. I have 11, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 strips on each side. You can see where it's uneven all the way. We're going to cut those off. I do want to talk about a couple things. So you can notice here that a couple of mine I sewn upside down. So if you have directional fabric, you want to make sure that you are laying them the right way so they go and face the right direction. I'm okay with having them not going the way they're supposed to. It does not bother or affect me. So it's just your preference on. And then I just want to show you the back. So when I stitch on a new strip, I always iron toward that strip to help lay nice and flat. So then when we put the rest of the quilt together, it's even. So now it's time to cut our piece. So we're going to take this point, we're going to line it up at the top. And I line it up just so it will, I can be able to trim off this bottom. So if your point is touching your top line, your zero line, you're going to cut this at 33.5 inches. And so that should take you right to this point where the first two of our strips joined. So it's going to roughly be right there. And whatever mark I have my top point at, that's where I'm going to put this point at. And the reason that is to keep it straight. Your line straight there. So I have my point at 12. So this center point is on the 12 mark. And I double check before I make that final cut. Okay, now that we have that, we're going to move our point over to 9 1/4. Then you're going to make sure this is lined up. You're going to line this ruler up on your 0 line on your and you're going to cut that strip off. When we're done cutting these strips off, this is going to measure 18 1/2 across. So we're not going to move our fabric. We're just coming to this side. And we're going to cut this at 18 1/2. Sugar, watch your tail, baby girl. Yes, you cut off more on one side than you do the other, but that is to make it square. Now we have our two, or say, arrows. That match up, but when we sew them, we're going to sew so the points match up here, and we're going to have a triangle that goes in there. So let's get the rest of the fabric cut out and get this quilt put together. So our next step is to take a 15-inch square, and you're going to cut it in quarters. So from corner to corner to corner. So you have a total of 4 triangles. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew the long edge of your triangle along the edge of the point. And that's going to give us the straight edge here so we don't have Y seams to be able to connect our 2 points together like that. So I already did the other 3. So let's go ahead and sew this one. We're going to sew it a 1/4 inch. And what I like to do when I go to pin it on, I like to start at one end and leave a little hangover so I know that it's going to fit the whole length. So we're going to start at this end, and I'm just going to line up the edges and pin it. So you can see where I left the tip of the triangle hanging off. And it will hang off at the other end as well. So we have it on, and we're going to go and press it toward the triangle piece that you just put on, and then we'll square it up. So what I do to square it up is I line my stripes up with a number on the cutting mat. Use one of the horizontal lines at the top, and now I know that this is my excess to cut off there. And I do it on the other side, and then I trim and square up the top. So here is one piece, and here's our other piece. Now what I'm going to do is take a pin, and I'm going to put it right through where the seams connect because that's my point. And I'm going to do it to the other side. And that's the point I want to make sure I don't clip. And now I'm going to sew these two together, lining everything up. And be careful not to stretch this because your triangles, because they are on the bias. And they will stretch fairly easy, so you need to be careful not to pull and tug on them. And now we're going to go stitch this down, making sure that we go through that tip to give us our points. Now we're going to go and press this, and I'm going to press it open to help with some of that bulk right there. And that will give us our pointed points and our strip to be able to sew together. So there is one strip for our top. Now we're going to cut a 12.5 by 66.5 of fabric, and we're going to sew that on one side. And then you're going to cut a 24.5 by 66.5, and it's going to go on this side. And that is going to be our chevron burst. So let's pin and sew this together. And when I'm pinning, I'm trying to pin at each corner or each piece of the chevron to help hold that down in place, to make sure that none of those little corners get folded up in there. So let me know, what is something that you have been working on, a new technique, a new pattern, or something that you've seen and you'd like to be demonstrated. I have a few projects I have coming up. We're going to have some changes coming to the channel come the first of the year. We're going to be doing a sew along. We're going to do a mug rug of the month. We'll have a quilt project that we'll be doing, whether it's showing a new technique or a new ruler or something like that. So I hope that that's something you're interested in. So I got it all pinned and ready to stitch. I got my leader here, and we're going to do it at 1/4 inch. So your finished quilt top will be 54 inches by 66 inches. Be a good lap quilt. You can make it longer. You can make it wider. Well, I ran out of bobbin, so I will fill the bobbin and then restitch this side down. As a bobbin's filled, and I'll pin it again. So when you lose your bobbin or run out of bobbin when you're quilting or patchworking, you want to make sure that you start over a few of those stitches that you already did to help keep them from unraveling. Okay, so I have it sewn. Now I'm going to take it to the ironing board, and I'm going to press it toward the solid fabric to reduce bulk on the chevron part. So there is the finished quilt top. You have an off-center chevron pattern. It is a finished quilt top at 54 by 66. That will be what your finished quilt is. You can back it however you would like and quilt it however you would like. So that's where we're going to leave off with this. I would love to see what you do with this pattern, what kind of fabric you use. If you have some ideas or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Until then, happy quilting, my friends.